everybody. This is the Marty O'Donnell Show, and this week we have a very special guest, another game composer, and he's more than a game composer. He's composed for all sorts of things. He's also a fellow graduate of USC and learned music and got his music degree at USC. I got my graduate degree there. So we have a really good time talking about games and music. And those of you who are not musicians or composers, you might hear us throw a bunch of educated words around like aleatoric and atonal and stuff like that. Don't worry about it. Counterpoint. If you don't know what it is, we'll show some examples. So this week we're going to play a few pieces of music that Gary did. Gary Schyman is my guest this week, and we had a really fun talk. So here's Gary Schyman. Okay, here we are. Welcome to the Marty O'Donnell Show once again. And this week, we're back to games and game music, especially. This will be the first time I've actually had another composer on. And not only is Gary Schyman a spectacularly talented composer, but and I'm sure I've already given a little introduction to him, but he's also a fellow graduate of USC. So anyway, I thought it'd be fun to talk to Gary. We've kept in touch over the years. He's an amazing composer of all sorts of things, not just games. Gary, welcome to the Marty O'Donnell Show. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here, Marty. And I've enjoyed your journey and and also appreciate your extraordinary compositional experience and you are a icon amongst my not only am I a composer, but I also teach at USC and have in a program called the Screen Scoring Program, which is for 20 cohort students who each year get accepted and go through. They have to take my class, so they're stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And I teach the scoring for video games class, and so they love your music. You are a huge icon to my students. So I think you may come in this coming year and speak to them.
I would love to be able to. Now that I'm living in Las Vegas, it wouldn't be quite as difficult to fly, to get over to USC. I've been over there a couple of times since I graduated, but that was a long time ago. And what's interesting to me, so let's go back before we talk about your childhood, because I want to get into everything. I want to know what drew you into music in the first place. But let's just get this USC thing out of the way. You, according to, I just remember talking to you about this, but I can't remember the details. You were a composition major. Did you do undergraduate at USC?
Yeah, I have a bachelor's degree, period, in music comp from USC.
Okay. So you got your BM in Bachelor of Music and Composition in 1978.
Yeah.
Is that when you... Now, why? Because you're 1 year older than me, and you're 1 year behind me in terms of getting your bachelor's. What were you doing with your time there? What was going on?
Well, I didn't start my college experience at USC. I went to Sonoma State, which is in Northern California.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
And I was not a music major, although I was playing the piano like 3 or 4 hours a day because I was obsessed with music and playing the piano and learning. You can see my grand piano back there.
I see the grand piano. Very snazzy.
But it was literally while I was at Sonoma State, which is a beautiful place to be, by the way. I loved that whole area. It's gorgeous. Sure. And while I was there, I mean, I didn't really have a discrete direction, but I just was taking music classes. That's all I wanted to take was music classes. And they actually had some really good teachers there, actually, I have to say. Arthur Hills, and I still remember him. He's passed away, sadly, but in any event, when I decided that I wanted to be a composition major, but more just directly, I wanted to be a film and television composer.
Oh,
so I kind of did some research, and USC's composition department was and still is considered one of the best in the country. So I applied and got in, and they did not have the screen scoring program when I was there.
No,
it was
in those Quonset Hutch.
David Rack, yeah.
Yeah, Raxon was there, right?
But so so I studied there, but then I took 3 years to study at USC. I just took my time because
Oh, neat.
I was taking only 10 units a semester, and I've got no rush. I really want to, I want to learn at a pace where it's comfortable for me because I have a lot to learn about orchestration and counterpoint and all the basic stuff that composers learn.
Exactly. It's funny because I've said this to people since as advice. I would say, look, don't worry about your college. Go to college, learn what you're supposed to learn at the pace you need to learn. If you need to
Yeah.
take time off, if you need to take less credits, no, by the time you're 30, nobody's going to care if you got your degree at 20 or 21 or 22. No, absolutely nobody in the world cares. Like, but
No.
if you rush through this stuff, or you really, the thing I found about especially kids coming out of high school is some of them are just really not ready to buckle
Right.
down and learn what you need to learn in college. So
Yeah.
I hand it to you for doing that.
By the way,
Yeah,
we could make all of the younger folks very jealous if we told them how much we spent per semester back then.
and this is at an expensive school, USC. Well, and
I spent $1,000 a semester. I remember that number in 1970. So it's a little more expensive now.
a little bit more. Oh, that's amazing. I went to USC. My first year was see, I think it was 78. So we probably crossed over just a tiny bit, but I was in the grad school program
Right.
starting in 78, and then it took me 3 years to finish up. I think I finished up in 70. I'm trying to remember if it was,
In composition,
no,
right?
you know what? I bet you mine was 78 to 79. So I bet you we missed each other by
Yeah, one
that
year.
summer. You probably finished in
Spring,
whatever it was,
spring.
spring of
Yeah,
78, and
yeah,
I
I
started
did.
in fall of 78. So it was
Yeah,
the end of that year.
and you were studying composition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
got my
Tony Fazzana and
yep,
Jim Hopkins and Bob Lynn and all
Bob
the
Lynn. Yep.
other guys.
Yeah, and Halsey Stevens was professor emeritus, and
Yeah,
Ellis B. Coase, and Rick
that's right.
Leseman, and
Right.
um, oh gosh, yeah, this is horrible having a senior moment. Who's the guy? He just writes some beautiful choral music. Not Hopkins, you know who I mean.
Oh yeah, Lex Eterna was his
Lex Turner.
famous
Morton
Lordson.
Lordson,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah,
Lordson
yeah, yeah.
was also there when I was there, and yeah,
Yeah.
that his choral music, which is gorgeous,
Yes.
just stunning. And
Stunningly
anybody
good.
listening, if you want a treat, if you aren't familiar with it, listen to his Lex Turner.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a classical piece that is contemporary and was written, I think, while we were while I was there. I can't remember when he wrote it, or it might have been just after I left. But anyway,
It made him
uh,
world famous.
yeah, it's a great piece. But yeah, and I think Bob Lynn wrote like the theme to the Olympics one year. I forget. I think he did some sort of Olympic march that was one of his claims
And
of
his
fame.
son invented the Lindrum.
Yes, I was gonna tell that story, but I'll tell it now.
Okay.
When I was there and I became I was a grad student, couldn't afford to stay, and they allowed me to be TA. So I was a teaching assistant in the composition department. And then one time, Bob Lynn, who was chairman of the department, said, they're having a shindig at his house, and Halsey Stevens would be there, and that was pretty cool to meet Halsey Stevens. He was a Bartok biographer and professor emeritus.
And a great composer in his own. Obviously not as famous as Bartok, but his music is quite beautiful.
Oh, okay, yeah, and so I went to this thing, and all the teachers were there, and I think there was one other TA there, and then Bob said to me, "Hey, you should come out and meet my son, who's got this little studio in the garage here, and see what he's working on." So I went out there, and of course I'm a grad student and could barely put food on the table. And then I met Roger Lynn, his son, and there was this, he had this cool studio out on the property there with, the shag carpeting on the walls and the whole thing. And he's like, yeah, I invented this thing. And there it was. It was this, wooden, cool looking box with these big buttons on it. And it was the Linn drum. And I got to play the first Linn drum. And he said, yeah, I think at the time he had it on he had given it to a couple of recording artists. Paul McCartney was one of them. And I think Stevie Wonder was another one. And I just remember thinking, wow, things are going to change. This is probably 1980.
It was like
81, 80.
I think it may be the first instrument that used sampling.
Yes. Yeah, he was the first guy to come up with the idea.
Commercially, anyways.
Yes, of using, he used EPROMs that were made by a telephony company up in San Francisco. And he asked them to, instead of putting, your call cannot be completed as dialed. I mean, those were the kind of things that were on those chips. He says, can you put these samples of a snare drum and a kick drum and hi-hats and all this stuff? And they did. And they sent it to him. He made the Linn drum. And then that company that was up in San Francisco who made EPROMs, they said, well, we could make those. And that was EMU.
Oh, interesting. I did not know.
Yeah.
That.
So then
Wow.
they're like, we're gonna start doing this. And they made the drumulator, which then turned into the emulator, which, like that's for a poor man like we were when we got into the business, we couldn't afford, the synclaviers and the Fairlights.
I'll tell you though about the synclavier.
Yeah.
One of my best friends from high school bought a synclavier, and he built a studio in his backyard. And I got to use it by going over to his studio. And it was, at the time, it was, it cost over $100,000, like in the 1980s.
The basic model.
It was extraordinarily expensive.
Yeah.
And, but it was really cool. And it also, the first version of the synclavier did not use sampling. It was kind of a synthesizer, essentially.
That's
and
right.
then it added sampling, which, of course, dramatically improved, and it was just, if you told someone now how little RAM it used, you'd be like, right?
Yeah, and I remember some of those sampling discs. But by towards the end of the life of it, it was like you'd have a thing that was the size of a refrigerator, and you put these discs in, and were like pizza boxes, and it's like you had the strings, one string sample would be in there or whatever it was. It was so clumsy in comparison to what we're used to today. The kids today have no idea how easy
we walk through the snow with no shoes to get to school kind of story, But at the time, it was like, holy shit, you can do that.
Yeah.
You could take a sample of a violin and, add it to it was like a miraculous. It was like something that out of from another planet.
It was fake because when we started in the business, nobody was sampling. I knew about Roger Lynn, I knew about the Linn drum, but those things were just unattainable. But we had a Prophet 5. That was the first synthesizer I had, a Prophet 5 synth, and a drum machine, the Roland TR-808, which in the 808s turns out to be this great, like everybody wants an 808. I still have my 808. It still works.
Oh, wow. I think those are valuable now.
Yeah.
You could be rich, Marty.
I could be rich.
Just sell your old TR.
So you got your Bachelor of Music composition in 78. So then you jumped right into the business. While I'm, doing grad school, you get into the business right away. You're in Hollywood, you go into the business. What was the first stuff you somehow you knew Dennis Weaver? Tell me that story.
Right. So, the same guy who had the synclavier, he was Dennis Weaver's son.
Oh, that's why he had $100,000 to burn. Okay.
And Robbie, his name is Robbie Weaver, and he's a wonderful guy, very talented man, and himself, I still know him. And but in any event, Rob's father was doing a television series, and Mike Post and Pete Carpenter were scoring it. So I just asked Robbie, can I get invited to a recording session?
Really?
Is there any way I could just be a fly on the wall? And he said, yeah, let me ask. And then, sure enough, I got an invite to the recording session, which was at Universal. Universal used to have it. There were a lot more recording stages back then, and I went and I introduced myself to Pete Carpenter, who was the older of that partnership. Mike and Pete, who's passed away a number of years ago, and he was a lovely guy from the Midwest, just a really down to earth, nice guy. And I just, at the end of the session, and I said, any way I could come, yeah, let's come back anytime. It was more. There wasn't as many people scrambling to be in this profession back then.
Wow.
And so I just kept going, and I never asked him for a job. And one day he says, "You have a demo?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." So I handed him my demo cassette. It was on an audio cassette.
Of course, yep.
And then he listened and says, "You want to try a couple cues?" Because they were getting busier and busier. They had one
Post
ghost.
and Carpenter.
They
were the hot.
The A-Team, Magnum PI, Greatest American Hero, on and on. So I said, yeah. And so I started working for them. And that was a great experience. So writing music, it's all paper and pencil, and showing up at the session and getting to record your cues. And that was my first opportunity, really, to make money it was unbelievable. And I started getting the ASCAP on those shows. They were on network television, were terrific. Sure. And they took a percentage, but we used their themes a lot. Actually, I think it was kind of fair, Sure. They got half and I got half,
Oh, well, that sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
I mean, so you started off sort of as a ghostwriter.
Yeah. I was always a ghostwriter for them. As long as a ghostwriter literally means you don't get screen credit.
Screen credit, right?
Yeah.
But they'll give you ASCAP. They put you on the ASCAP.
They put you on the cue sheet. Yeah.
Okay. That's not bad. That's actually, I can see why that, and especially for somebody young, you were probably
I was in my 20s,
early 20s,
early mid
20s. Great experience, man. Yeah.
And I still get royalties from the A-Team and Magnum PI. Apparently, they love the A-Team in Italy because they're still watching that show.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Okay. I'll just say one quick thing. So the A-Team was a big hit. They made a movie out of it and everything. But we watched because I was at the first, spotting session, and we watched it. It was a pilot, and we all looked at each other and go, "This is the stupidest freaking show. This is going to be gone after 3 episodes," and we were all wrong. It was becoming a huge hit.
A pit of the fool. Yeah.
A bit of the fool, right?
Why did that become? I mean, it was just such a quirky show with these cast of characters.
Yeah, it was weird, man.
The guy, one of the actors actually auditioned. I would have loved to have used him. He ended up, I think he was in like a Star Trek Next Generation. He was a character on it. He was one of the characters in the A-Team, the sort of tall, skinny guy.
I think I know who you're talking about. He did some voice acting on one of my games.
He did. See, he was
Shadow of Mordor.
Okay, yeah.
What's his name? Schmidt or something.
I auditioned him, and for some reason the voice or what we were looking for, it didn't work out. But I remember, talking to him about A-Team and talking to him about. He had a fun role on Star Trek Next.
Dwight Schultz? Is it Dwight Schultz?
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Dwight Schultz, and he was he also as I said,
but he was Shadow of Mordor. That's cool.
He was in Shadow of Mordor, and he's a good actor, man. The guy's a good actor.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. It's like but it's so interesting that you so low key got to be in those sessions, because by the time Post and Carpenter, they were, I swear there was a moment where every show on network television was being scored by them. It was just insane.
It wasn't every show, but they had like 5 or 6 shows going
in
on
prime time. They were
prime time, and they were making a lot of money and doing really well. And I think Mike is still working.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I saw him a couple of years ago, and had a nice. And we were at an event together, and it was just nice seeing him. but he's still going, man.
All right, so let's go back to your childhood. Like when did you know that music was going to be your life? Like, how did that work for you?
By the way, I come from Chicago. Um,
No,
I was born in Chicago.
I
Yeah.
thought you were Canadian. Why did I think you
No,
were
no,
from
no. I
Canada?
was born in Chicago, and my parents, no, none of us are Canadians. Um,
Well, I
no
like you
We
even
have a
more
sign
now.
out front that says "No Canadians"
No Canadians allowed.
allowed.
Where in Chicago did you grow up? Where was
It's
this?
called Rogers Park.
Sure, Rogers Park. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know where that is.
but I
Yeah.
was like really young. I was like one and a half when my parents moved to
Okay. All right.
California to Los
Oh,
Angeles,
all right. So
and
you're
so
primarily an
I
LA boy.
primarily grew up here and
Okay.
have the whole yeah. So I think I got into music because my mother rented a piano for my brother because he was taking a piano class, but he didn't practice, and I was just drawn to it and couldn't stop playing and learning, and I was absolutely and I wanted to play classical music too. I
Sure.
wasn't trying to play rock and roll or anything. I really was attracted and loved Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and all that stuff, So I was very square.
So
I was a square.
you're like 5, 6, 7 years old
No,
when you.
I was 12. I
Oh,
was older.
12. Oh, that
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
started late, but I started because the piano all of a sudden was there, and I started practicing hours a day. Started taking lessons and got deeply into it. And in high school, I had a really good music teacher there. He was amazing. Um, the guy really. I learned a lot about music theory,
Okay.
and he taught me all the basics of music theory, and it stuck with me to this day. Really.
So you grew up when you were playing the piano on the classics, so Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, whatever,
Yeah.
orchestral
Yeah.
music like Prokofiev, Mahler, people like that.
Yeah.
When when you were so you're at Sonoma State and you're sort of on your own practicing a lot of music, and then you're taking music classes. When you got to USC, when did you get sort of down into the because like, I have a feeling you must have liked late romantic stuff at some point.
Well, I mean, my to this day, Mahler is like maybe my favorite composer. I'm a
Okay.
huge Mahler fan, so that's late romantic,
Yeah, yeah,
for sure. But
yeah,
also, I loved and fell deeply in love with 20th century, early 20th, like Bartok and Stravinsky and Prokofiev and
yeah,
Shostakovich, all that stuff totally spoke to me, and it was
yeah.
totally.
Well, so I we're very similar in those ways.
Stravinsky.
Stravinsky, Bartok. I mean, I played Bartok. I loved Bartok. I didn't get
I went to
introduced.
Bartok's home when I
Did you
was yeah.
really?
If you it's you anybody who goes to Hungary and can go to his house. It's a small little house, and at the time in Hungary, he before they were on the euro as they are now, the money had Bartok's photo on it, picture on
Oh,
it.
wow,
That's how
interesting.
Bartok was
You know,
a
it's
very
huge.
important
Yeah,
figure,
yeah,
and of course Budapest is where he's from, and he left because he hated the Nazis and
right.
escaped to the United States and got very sick, unfortunately.
That's one of the things that I remember. I think I read some book. It might be is it The Rest is Noise. I forget. There's a book that's talking about composers, and it gets to the 20th century, and it's talking about these different composers. And there are times when I'm like, oh yeah, those he was at the same time as this composer, and he was at the same time as this one. But they never really interacted much. And I'm like, yeah, of course. What am I thinking? Europe was aflame for most of the 20th century. Like,
Yeah.
what Prokofiev had to do with the, Russians and Shostakovich had to do with the communists. And like, then you've got, Stravinsky leaving.
Prokofiev was in the West, and he went back to the Soviet Union.
That's
This is
amazing.
very interesting. But he was treated like he was a rock star there.
Okay.
He was
But
treated
Shostakovich had to like sort of
he's
hide his,
well. He wrote the Fourth Symphony, which Stalin didn't like,
yeah.
and so he was on the outs. It's like, well, better write the Fifth Symphony, or I'll end up in the Gulag archipelago here.
Oh, wow.
So he wrote
And
the Fifth Symphony, which put him back. But yeah, there's some great bios of him. He struggled with his.
Well, you just sort of forget that world politics played a giant role in what was happening with the composers and where composers were. And, Stravinsky, I sort of think of Stravinsky not so much as a Russian as a Parisian. Like he went to Paris, and I think that influence is probably bigger on Stravinsky than, he always sort of was this big Russian dude, but like he was mostly Parisian, I think. That's just my opinion.
Le Secret du Printemps.
Yeah, right.
is
and
French.
Working with
Diaghilev,
and so I mean that was such a marriage made in heaven. It was amazing, and he was doing that stuff in the teens, around the same time that the Soviets were having a revolution. Stravinsky wasn't part of that, so it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that music. I love all that. It's the same music you have, but you took a turn to the dark side. Once you got to USC, somehow you started getting into serialism. So tell me about that.
Well, it was actually after I left USC. I studied with a man named George Tremblay.
Yeah, Tremblay. Yeah, he's the Canadian.
He's the Canadian, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I, for some reason, thought that's why you were studying with him, because you were going back to
not at all. At the time, he was very popular amongst film and TV composers. He had a lot of maybe most of his students were film and TV composers. And he only taught 12-tone, and he had a very cool and unique style. As a matter of fact, Tom Newman studied with him.
Oh,
and
really?
Tom and I chatted about that a couple of years ago when he was in my class. He visited my class.
Who was in your class?
Tom Newman.
Really?
Yeah.
At USC?
At USC. At USC, yeah.
So,
He visited my class as the famous composer.
As the famous composer.
To talk. And as it happened, which is probably why he was there, his daughter was taking my class.
Oh, that's cool.
And she's doing great. Julia's doing great. Now they're doing TV series together where he will maybe write the theme, and then she'll end up scoring the whole series. And she's really terrific.
And Thomas Newman is I think he's maybe a year older. He's not that much older than us, right? Is he?
Not our age. I think right in there. But he studied with Tremblay.
Yeah, I think it's interesting he would study, because I would never think of Thomas Newman's stuff. His stuff is so tonal most of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Tremblay was just such a unique character. Those classes, or private lessons, were 3 hours long.
You're kidding.
And the first half of it had nothing to do with music. It would be talking about philosophy, or he would talk about the ancient Persians, he literally was extraordinarily well educated, or we talk about Chopin and they were just really intellectual feasts for nerds.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then we get into it and spend an hour and a half on these really kind of.
So this is 1979, 1980?
Yeah, early 80s.
Oh, early 80s.
Yeah.
Were you already working with Post and Carpenter then?
Yeah.
At the same time?
I was not writing 12-tone for them.
No, I can imagine. But wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, it was really. I studied with them for 4 years, and then he died. He died fairly in his early 70s from cancer, sadly.
It's funny because I had a guy in Chicago when we were doing jingles. So the first thing I started doing once I got my graduate degree and I went back to Chicago. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on a film set I had a 1 year, baby. I don't even think she was a year old, and I was working on a film set, and the producer came up to me and said, "Marty, hey, you have a music degree, an advanced degree. Why don't you write music for, TV and film and stuff?" And I said, "I don't want to prostitute my art." So unlike you were already thinking maybe this
I was a prostitute from day one.
Because I thought I was going to.
Hey mate, I'll write it.
And this is after I had already decided I wanted to go into music because I wanted to be a rock star. So once I finished grad school at USC, and I had this other uppity version of what I should be doing. And I thought I was going to teach at American Conservatory in Chicago. and that fell through. So while I'm still thinking I'm going to teach at American Conservatory, and I'm on the film set, the next day after this producer asked me, the director came to me and said, "Hey, Marty, I'll give you $500 if you score this film." I'm like, "Done. I'm there." So it was like I
By the way,
realized,
$500 was more money than now. $500 is like a very expensive dinner out for.
yeah, $500 meant something. Plus, I had to split it with the only guy who had equipment that I knew, Mike Salvatore. So I split it with Mike. So I was not as I just didn't know my price. Let's just say
Right.
that. And of course, the rest is history. From that moment
Yeah.
on, like I changed my mind about everything. Like that was it. I was going to do that.
Those epiphany moments in life,
Yes, yeah.
that we have and we change and you know I
But one,
remember I remember when I was before I went to USC, I was at Sonoma and I was like, I think pop music is shit. And I took all my pop albums or LPs and I sold them. And I remember going to the record store and they go, "Well, these are really good records." I go, "I don't want them. I don't want any of them." So I sold them all and I just bought traded them for classical
wow.
music. Now
Okay.
I have come to appreciate that music, but at that moment I was like the
Yes.
complete dickhead. Like
Music snob.
music snob. Totally got into the snobbery of it. It was
Oh,
it made
that's
me feel
hilarious. Well, yeah. So I mean, it was years later. I was working on a kitty litter commercial, and I was like, I have prostituted my heart. Wasn't long after that I was looking for something else to do, and believe it or not, I did the sequel to Myst, so I did Riven,
right.
and I started working on games because I thought games were much cooler, and then it led to everything else. But there was a friend of mine in the business. I think his name was Jim Tullio. I remember he was just a rock and roller, and at some point in his early career, he's probably our age. I should find out what he's doing, but anyway. I think was he living in New Jersey or New York or something, and he goes, "I want to learn how to compose," and he went to Aaron Copland's house and like said, "Hey, can I take lessons?" And he did.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
like
That's a
what?
wow.
You can't just do that. So I
I'm a
mean,
huge Copeland fan. I
yeah,
love his
me
music.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So you so you're dabbling, not dabbling, but you are probably one of the best contemporary atonal composers that in the industry, both film and television and games. Like you're just like if people know that you can take that stuff and just do spectacularly good work with that. Tell me about like what is that? What is that
Well,
about
I mean,
atonal?
I've written a lot of music, and
Yeah,
and I
I mean you're all over the
probably most of it is tonal. I would
sure.
say that probably like 80% plus. But when I worked on a game called Bioshock, and in that score, I thought, I knew about aleatoric writing, and for those who are listening, I'm assuming not everyone's a composer listening, right? So that's a really interesting style of music that sort of developed in mid 20th century by Ligeti and
Yeah.
Penderecki, and it involves a certain amount of improvisation by the players, but basically you get very dark, atonal, dissonant music that's quite creepy and eerie. So Bioshock, I said that could be really cool for this game,
Yeah.
and so
Okay.
I embraced that, and that became part of an important part of the score. And people loved it because it was so creepy and scary, and you're in this dystopian, world in a crazy undersea city and whatever. So it
Yeah.
worked really well for that. But not all the music. There was some actually very tonal cues in Bioshock, so it was a mix.
Yeah. So at some point in this show, we will intersperse a couple of things. I know that like Yeah, the thing I noticed about the Bioshock, I was looking at the score again because I know I was going to talk to you. I the your atonal stuff. Now, was any of it serial or was it just atonal? And I mean, I don't
Very,
mean just
very little serial for that. I think
okay.
one cue may have been serial, but it was more of this aleatoric style
Yes.
of, basically these very dissonant, very
Yeah,
dark.
and it's those orchestral effects that
Yeah,
you just did so many great what the orchestra can do by doing these Penderecki, liggity kinds
yeah.
of thingies that are just so spectacular. And then you did, but you did what you did with some of that atonal music is like super cool and memorable. But like the thing I was going to ask you about because you'll you'll go to the poignant moment and it'll be very sort of simple. Like you have the C minor arpeggio, just uh, Alberti bass in the piano to G major
Yeah.
six, and then with a
But with
the A
some
flat.
atmospheric dissonance
Yeah,
behind it,
yeah. But it was just this sort of eerie, childlike simplicity, and then you'll have like A minor G F, A minor G F, sort of a thing that just sort of is, and so it's very it's like such a stark contrast. The tonality is so much of a contrast and so much more accessible. And I was thinking what I was going to ask you about is like I'm glad to hear you say what you say because when I do atonal in any of the scores I do, it's because okay, this needs to be super disturbing and creepy and headache inducing, and you
right.
wonder about the sanity of the people on the screen. That's why I'm that's why I'm doing atonal. And I didn't know if that's like if you do it for the same emotional to get the same emotional
Yeah,
effect
of
that I
course,
do.
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the music. One of the things I haven't written a ton of 12 tone music because it's just it. I don't want it. What we do is we get hired and we become part of a team to make a commercial product, and so
Yes.
the bottom line is it's got to work for
Right.
for the thing. So it's like we're going to shoehorn our, uh, you know, I want to write this because I think it's cool, and it has. If it doesn't work, That said, there's been a couple of cues that I have been able to use 12 tone in, especially on Bioshock Infinite. I did that, the third in that series of
Okay.
games. Um, but there was just a few cues that I was able to do that with. So yeah, it's not something that I'm not in it. I mean, whatever it is, I've written. You'd be surprised, like the song. I've written songs that are super
Sure.
tonal and pop oriented, and
No, just
and
not like I. That's what I wanted to like get into with you is like, are you like me? Like you're writing the music because here's the assignment or here's what we need to get done. Here's the emotions we want the audience to have, and you're
of
like,
course.
I can do that. Okay, all right,
Of course, and I like writing in different styles.
yeah,
So if something is a song or if it's pop oriented, that's cool. If something is dark and huge, like I did a game called Dante's Inferno, which has these, recorded in London with these massive kind of orchestral effects and things like that.
yeah,
Of course, that's set in hell, which is cool. So I got to score
right.
hell.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know how it's. I know how to score
You know,
hell.
you know the
So
score.
someday I may be very valuable after I pass. No, I'm kidding. Hopefully I won't end up there. Oh,
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you're the guy. Yeah.
you
Well,
did score hell, but we'll let you in here
yeah.
anyways.
You I was sort of like catching up on your career a little bit, and I saw that after you did a bunch of TV stuff and you did some movie stuff. Also in the early '90s, you started getting into like you got into games before I did. So you got into games in the early '90s, '93 maybe, '94.
It was 93. Yeah.
And
That was just a
Voyeur,
few games.
yeah,
Voyeur. Now, okay, this is going back to the same guy we talked about earlier. Robbie
yeah,
Weaver
okay,
got into games. He started working for Philips Interactive.
Oh,
and they had a
sure. The laser
CDI,
did
CD
this the
interactive.
CD.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that's
it's
right.
made it possible because games before that you were basically just MIDI triggering the synth engine,
Right.
but here you could write music that
Okay.
and it could get used in the game as a stereo recording. That
Yes.
got
Yeah.
compressed.
Red Book audio. Right.
Yeah, I think the compression techniques were not great, but it allowed it to get onto a CD, which had space for 700 megabytes, which was a
Right.
lot back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did 3 or 4 games, and then when Philips Interactive went out of business, and Robbie was no longer doing it, I didn't do it anymore. So it was just like a kind of like a little. It was. I didn't see it as I'm getting into games now. It's just like it's a gig. Someone wants me to
Sure.
do this. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. And on Voyeur, I got an orchestra, so that was really cool.
Okay. So gosh, if 93 you had an actual orchestra, that's got to be one of the first games to use live real
Yes,
recorded orchestra.
I think it's one. I don't know if it is the first, but it's close to it. It may be. And
Sure.
I've never been able to suss that out, and it's not something I really want
Well,
to
I
delve
mean,
into.
I wasn't I was a gamer, so I played games, and I was very interested in how games were made and like what the games are doing. But like I thought, this is not for me. I was already recording orchestras and doing TV and film and a lot of commercial work. But it was all professional musicians and singers and the whole 9 yards. But games just seemed really kind of twinky, and I just didn't think they were going to go anywhere until '93, and that's when I saw Myst, and it
Yeah,
was on a CD-ROM.
that was a changer. That
Yeah,
changed I remember a friend of mine at that time. I went over to his house just to hang out, and he goes, "I want to show you this really cool thing." And it's this game called Myst, and I'd never heard of it, to be honest. And he showed me, and I was like, "Wow, that's really intriguing. That's really cool." And then it had music, and yeah,
the music on Myst was all from the Proteus, which is pretty cool because the Proteus was a very hip little
I had a
box.
Proteus. I had
Yeah,
several. I had a Proteus, Ethno Proteus. Remember that one?
sure, all those. Yeah, there's a series of Protei, I guess. Um, but yeah, Robin Miller. I met the Miller brothers, and then I got to work on the sequel to Myst, which was Riven, but that didn't come out until '97. Um, but
It
it
seemed
was,
like late '90s is when
yeah,
Sony came out.
yeah. It wasn't long
With the
after that that
PlayStation, and
the PlayStation
that
came
really
out,
changed everything.
changed everything absolutely. And Jeremy Soule came out with orchestral for whatever that RTS that he made with the guys in Seattle. Now I can't remember anybody. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, no, I remember he's I don't know what he's doing
Yeah, I
nowadays,
don't know
but
either. I did. I probably shouldn't say this, but I did talk to him recently. So he's still alive. He's still doing okay. He's. I don't want to go down that road, but I think Jeremy is a good guy, and I think he deserves a second chance for
yeah, he has
everybody deserves a
some
second
tough
chance.
issues,
Yeah, he had
but
some
yeah,
tough issues, but uh, yeah. Anyway, he did this game that was all orchestral, and then I was in 1999. We had this opportunity to, we had done Myth: The Fallen Lords, and I had done Riven, and did the sequel to Myth, and then it was like, oh well, we have this opportunity to show what we're doing with this new game we were making called Halo. We have an opportunity to have it play at Macworld New York, and it was like, okay. I said, look, let me hire my orchestral players that I already know and some singers that I know, and we're going to do this upright. But it was for the show. I didn't ever know if we could really.
it didn't come out. It hadn't come out yet.
No, in '99, it was the first time the world saw it at Macworld New York. Steve Jobs introduced it. We did a
Oh,
live.
that's really cool.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
it
know
worked out
that.
great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had a great, audience, captive audience in New York,
Holy cow,
and
that's really cool.
it was broadcast over the internet, so it was a little tiny postage stamp, but there it was. And the music was all live. It sounded very cinematic, and it was the monks singing and the da da da
Yeah, that's
da.
one of the most iconic themes and
Yeah, who would have thought? Like, I was sort of a desperation. I have a weekend to put this together, and then there's going to be showing the next week, and so there was no time to think about it. It was just all instinct. But yeah, by 2001, of course, then that got picked up, and then we became the launch title for the Xbox, and then the rest is history. But like, you came back into the game industry, kind of. Let's see now, like
2004.
2005.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
the game came out in 2005. Destroy All Humans.
Yeah. So we had by that point we'd shipped Halo 2, and you're coming back from, early games, but also TV and film.
I was doing exclusively film and TV, and then I got the chance to do.
So how did you do Destroy All Humans? Because that is one of the most fun soundtracks ever. It's so quirky and 50s and B-movie. It's got all the stuff in it. Like, how did you get picked for that?
I had an agent at that time, and he was just like shotgunning my resume all over town, and he sent one of them to a fax machine at THQ. Remember THQ? They went out of business. And it was sitting on the fax machine. This wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't happen now because nobody uses fax machines anymore, except the government. I think these.
Yeah, I think so.
Fax it to the IRS.
The IRS uses it. The military uses it. Yeah.
Right. But and it was sitting there, and then this woman saw it, an executive there, and she was my girlfriend's roommate from college. And I knew her. Her name is Rachel DiPiola, and she saw it. She goes, "I know him. You should listen to his music. He's really talented." So this is like going back to college. Wow. And so that was serendipity from God knows where. And then so the person at THQ, and they heard one thing on my agent sent my demo over. They heard one thing on it that was sort of in the vibe of Bernard Herrmann. Because Destroy All Humans is basically set in the 1950s. And they were temping it with Bernard Herrmann, and so Bernard Herrmann, for those not familiar, is like one of the greatest film composers of all time. Psycho and all the Hitchcock movies and all, and he also scored The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is orchestral with
theremin.
Theremin, exactly. So that's kind of one of the most iconic sci-fi movies ever. With us, yeah. With us, yeah, brilliant score. And so I and they said, "Do you have anything else that kind of sounds like Bernard Herrmann?" And I'd done a score that actually was very Bernard Herrmann, because I was and still remain to this day huge fan of Bernard Herrmann. So I said, "Listen to this stuff," and it was with orchestral, which was really cool. And so they go, "We love this. Will you pitch?" And that term was not a term that I'd used in film or TV. So what's that? He goes, "Well, just basically write a theme for us." And I said, "No." I said, "No, I'm going to do that. Why should I do that?" And the reason actually I said that, because I was like, you know what? I gave them exactly what they're looking for, Bernard Herrmann. And it's just, and I'm going to have to do this with synths and samples. It's going to sound, it'll be a reason not to hire me because they don't like my demo,
Yeah.
So, and then I didn't hear anything for a couple months, and they called my agent and says, "We want Garry."
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, we have such different stories of how you get in, but like it's the serendipity is part of so much of it. Like you just sometimes have to be at the right place at the right time, say yes at the right time, or say no at the right time.
Say no. I mean, who would? There's no way you could ever, I would never tell my students, don't do demos. Tell them to go fuck off. Can I say that word on yours?
Yes. Well, you already have. So there it is. Yes, you can. Wow, that is really cool.
So and then I got in. I scored that, and I went, and I was like, I like to say that I feel like I was like a hick. Comes to the big city. I was like this. I didn't know what gaming had become. I was totally. I was not into gaming, and I was like, wow, this is really good. They are pretty damn sophisticated, these games. I want to do more of them. So I'm not trying to make fun of people with
no. But by 2005, games had come a long way.
Yeah, and I was like, I want to do more of this. Plus, I got an orchestra, and a lot of the TV movies that we're doing, they're going, we don't want to pay for an orchestra.
Right.
So So I went to GDC. I was at the 2005 GDC. You were there. I think I introduced myself to you, but you didn't know who I was. You just said, "Ah, nice to meet you," and walked off. You were
Come
like,
on.
a big shot, and I was. Well, Destroy All Humans hadn't even come out yet, so
Oh,
nobody. It
interesting.
had not come out yet. It was coming out later that year, so I was just another person. But you were. I was. That's Marty O'Donnell. I would go, that's Marty O'Donnell. I go, really? Who the fuck is Marty O'Donnell? Okay, he's
Why would you
important.
know that?
but
Well,
but I but I did quickly realize that you are one of the distinguished.
well, the funny thing is that the first GDC I went to was, I think, 1996. It was called CGDC, Computer Game Developers Conference, and I hadn't done anything. I just done a lot of commercials and normal, what I would consider professional stuff. And I was looking at and these guys are friends of mine now, but like I was looking at sort of who were my competition if I'm going to get into this. This is 96, so I had already had a connection with the Myst guys. And I knew I'd gotten the gig to work on Riven, the sequel to Myst. And at that point,
How did you
Myst
get Riven? How did you get hired for Riven? Why didn't they hire the Mist guy?
they in terms of the music side, they ended Robin Miller, the one of the brothers, still ended up doing the music on that. But I worked with him. I helped him build his new
I
studio,
see.
and
I see.
and I showed him some new equipment, and I did some demo stuff for him, which he really liked. But he decided to do the music himself. We did the sound design on that. So
Okay.
and we also hired the actors and recorded them, and helped them with their blue screen stuff that they ended up doing in San Francisco. They were going to do it in Spokane, which is like, I went to Spokane. I'm like, guys, trust me, you got to up your production values, because you've just produced the biggest game of all time, and they did their blue screen for Myst in 1993 or 92 when they were making it. They did the blue screen by going into their father's church basement and putting a big blue towel on the wall and shooting themselves against that. So I was like, yeah, I think you need to go up your game, right? Literally up your game. So I just hooked him up with some people I knew and different production things, and ended up being the sound design person for Riven, which was very cool. And then at the same time, I parlayed that into Bungie's was working on a new game called Myth: The Fallen Lords. And I said, look, I'm working on Riven, the sequel to Myst, so you should probably hire me because I'm important now. And so I
You were
somehow
still living in
convinced him that.
Chicago at that
Yeah,
time,
still
right?
Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I got hooked up with Bungie, and then eventually that turned into Halo in '99.
Yeah.
But yeah, by 2005, we'd had a couple of pretty major successes
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Halo
That
1 and
was.
then Halo 2.
I
And
remember like when Halo was coming out, that people would like line up at the
GameStops. Yeah.
GameStops and stuff for like. And I remember because there's a GameStop not far away, and I think, why are there like 900 people lined up here? And it was like, oh, Halo is coming
Yeah.
out, and I go, okay, wow, okay, that's.
Yeah, it was just right time, right place. Xbox launch, Xbox Live for Halo 2. There was a lot of things came together at the right
Yeah.
time, and just it was a sort of a magical time for us working on that stuff. And GDC was a lot of fun. But when I went to the first GDC, I hadn't done anything yet, and I just had, maybe I'll work on the sequel to Myst, but I don't know. So I thought I'd check out the competition, and I met.
Was it in San Francisco?
It was actually outside. It was in Santa Clara,
Oh,
if you
wow.
can believe that. Yeah, and then it moved to San Jose, and then it moved to San Francisco. But when this one in Santa Clara, there was one group of people walking around, and they all had these Texas cowboy spangly outfits on, and that was George Sanger, the Fat Man,
Oh,
and
wow.
his crew running around. And then this little short Italian guy who had his posse of absolutely gorgeous women hanging on him, and that was Tommy Tallarico.
Oh, yeah, Tommy. Yeah.
And then, so anyway, Scott Gershon was there with his crew. All had leather jackets that said Sound Deluxe on them. And so I met these guys. They didn't know who I was, so it was like they were the big shots and I was a nothing. But what I did is I sort of sized up, what were they actually doing competition wise, and I thought, I can do that.
Yeah.
I think I can join this crew. So I'll sneak in and do Riven. I remember talking to Scott Gershon. You know Scott? He was Sound Deluxe.
I think
He's more on the sound
I don't
design
know
side
him
of
well,
things.
but I've met him like at GDC and stuff.
But he goes, well, what do you think you're going to be working on? I said, it looks like I got the sequel to Myst. And he was like, what? That's the biggest game out right now. How'd you get the sequel? And I'm like, I knew somebody. It was just like,
Yeah.
I happen to know somebody who knew somebody. So, yeah, and that's the rest is history. So that's funny. But I remember when Destroy All Humans came out and I played it. And it was just really fun. It's such a great score. So, I mean, we'll play some of that here because it was so unique. And you guys did the same thing, right? I mean, same thing as some of those other sort of period kind of games where you would take songs that were popular at the time, like Mr. Mr. Postman, and didn't you take some songs that were out?
I didn't have anything to do with the choice of songs.
Oh, okay.
But I think maybe thinking of Bioshock had a bunch of kind of.
Well, Bioshock did too. I know.
Well, it's both the same audio director, a woman named Emily Ridgway. So maybe that's kind of her.
I remember
creative,
her. Yeah.
Decision.
That's interesting. So is that how you got over to working on Bioshock?
Yes, because I scored Destroy Humans, and Emily was the audio director, and she loved my music, and the score did well. It got nominated for some gang awards, etc. And then she got hired to work on Bioshock. Yeah.
Now, you did all the Bioshocks, right? All the way through Bioshock Infinite, and
I have, and the downloadable stuff, all that stuff.
Yeah. So now, when did you had to have met and worked with Ken Levine then at some point? Yeah. So tell me about that.
I call Ken the Steve Jobs of video games because he's brilliant and intense and driving, and I got along with him really well. He loved my music. We actually worked together on something because there was a anthem that they wanted, like an anthem for the city of Rapture, and so he wrote the lyrics and I wrote the music, and he sent me like 10 times as many lyrics as I needed, but he was just like, what about this? And then, and I go, this is all cool, but I had to sift it down to like a useful part. But so we actually worked together, and then Bioshock 2 was not made by Ken's company. It was made by 2K Novato, California, and which is a great game, by the way. And then Bioshock Infinite was his second Bioshock game.
Right. So that was his second Bioshock. Now, you know what? I remember that story. I've had some private conversations over the years with Ken, and he's super, like you said, he's like an auteur. He's
really
super intense and super amazingly creative. He's a pleasure to talk to. And Infinite, it was sort of a return. It was the floating in air version of Rapture. Yeah.
He didn't want to because Bioshock 2 is set in the same undersea city
again.
Set in Rapture. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to do something fresh.
Yeah, but you still did the score to Bioshock 2.
I love working on Bioshock 2.
Okay.
In some ways, I think my Bioshock 2 score is better than my Bioshock 1 score.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So really had a great time working on that, and there was more money, so that I could have a bigger orchestra and all that.
Where did you record that?
Record that here in Los Angeles. At that time, I was recording everything in LA, and this is before all the crazy stuff with the union kind of clamped down on that. They had an agreement, because if you work with the union, you have to sign an assumption agreement. But they had an agreement that just they considered video games kind of just like, what's that? It's just here's sort of like something you could use, kind of like. And it was acceptable to the companies, to do it. And so, all the Bioshock games were scored in LA.
All AFM
They were all of
yeah,
them. And because interesting enough, even when the Bioshock Infinite came along, was after we had a new AFM president, Ray Hare, who was a schmuck.
oh yeah,
And he really kind of made it very difficult to record video games.
that's I remember hearing about
But
that.
I grandfathered it in using the original
Oh,
Bioshock, and the union local 47 was the union said, yeah, you can do that, because they wanted
sure,
the work. So
yeah.
I was able to continue using.
And like you said, TV started going more samples and synths,
Yeah,
and they started chintzing out a little bit on some major TV shows. The scores were not as, other than like Family Guy and
right.
some of those things which were amazing. You have you met those guys,
Walter
Ron
Murphy.
and Walter Murphy and
Walter Murphy
Ron Jones?
was working for Mike Post and Picard when I
Oh,
was. So
really?
we were friends back then. Um,
Oh
and
man.
yeah, I didn't know Ron very well, but
Okay.
Walter sort of took over that, and
Was Ron the one that did? No, which is the one that also did some Star Trek
that's
stuff?
Ron. Yeah,
It
Ron.
was Ron. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, I get those two mixed up. That's just the
yeah.
way things go.
Walter's very talented, man. I still
Yeah.
know Walter. Not, I mean, I don't see him regularly. We're not like getting together all the time, but I see him occasionally at events. We're always happy to see each other and catch up.
Yeah. So now, when did you get the gig with USC to teach scoring?
In 2010,
Wow, that
15
long
years.
ago.
Yeah, Brian King. Well, they had a guy who was teaching video game scoring. They had a video game scoring someone teaching that program, but he moved out of LA, and so they needed somebody. And Brian King reached out to me.
Hmm.
Someone recommended me or something, and I said, "Oh, I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be really. I would love to do that." I immediately wanted to do it. I
Yeah.
think maybe my connection to USC was kind of cool,
Yeah.
and and the thought of being a professor sounded kind of cool. Uh, some people are more impressed that I teach at USC than they are that I scored anything, and
Huh.
some people are more impressed that couldn't care less that I
Right.
teach at USC.
Well, I mean, that's one of the other things when I talk to people, they'll ask me like, how important is it to get a college degree? And I'm like, well, it's it's not important and it's everything. It's like it's both things at the same time. You're probably not going to get a gig because you show them your degree,
No,
but
no one has
if you
ever asked for my degree. Like, where'd you
right,
go to school?
yeah,
And that never has come up when and
yeah,
maybe if
in any of the industries, right?
no,
TV, film, or games, like nobody
no,
cares.
no.
Yeah,
Hans Zimmer famously, doesn't know how to
yeah.
read or write music in the traditional way, and yet he's perhaps the most
Well,
successful.
and Danny Elfman is the same, right? I
Danny as
mean,
well. Yeah. So
yeah.
those guys are just instinctually
Well,
brilliant
Paul
at it.
McCartney doesn't read music
There you go.
either, and
There you
he
go.
he
And
would,
you
I don't read music, and I'm like, yeah, Paul, everybody, it's in the documentaries, we get it. Mike Salvatore doesn't read music.
that's a good Paul
Well,
imitation. That's
thanks.
very.
Well,
I
I
know
work
you
with him.
hung out and worked with the man, so that's very cool.
Well, but I always think it's sort of funny it's like, I'm not sure that I don't read music is like a badge of honor, but I totally understand why people who are, essentially autodidacts on the music side,
Right,
right?
right.
They're self-taught, they use their gut. And honestly, I think using your gut is probably the most important thing that you can do. But I I always think people who are self-taught, you'll every once in a while you'll catch them making some sort of really kind of rookie error that they wouldn't have made if they just had just a
Right.
little bit of knowledge
Or
about theory or
orchestration or
something. Yeah,
counterpoint or whatever.
yeah. And it's just like I feel like, well, you're really good and it's all natural. What if you had just a little education? It might not ruin you. It might elevate your skills, but I don't know. Like I wouldn't want to mess with Paul McCartney, right? I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
like here learn this, and then he's like,
If you look at their songs and you go, why did he choose that harmony? That is
yeah,
so cool. I would never have thought of that. They're
exactly,
brilliant.
exactly.
They're
Yeah,
really brilliant. So
absolutely.
yeah, some people are just, instinctually amazing people, and maybe education would have not
Yeah,
benefited them, or maybe it would have. Who knows?
yeah.
I've heard some composers like who are kind of in that state. Well, I think education would ruin me, and I go, to me that doesn't make any sense. But
No.
because I wanted to learn as much as I could, and I still
Yeah,
study. You
yeah.
know,
Well, I mean,
but you're right about instinct. But by the way, I remember hearing John Williams. Someone was asking, "Why did you do that?" And he goes, "I don't know. It's just instinctual. I just make decisions instinctually." You know. But it's like, in a way, though, if you learn music, it's just like, we learn how to talk, but we
yeah,
didn't rehearse what we're saying right now. We're improvising, right?
that's right,
But
all the time.
but some people are more articulate than others, and some.
Yes, and their vocabulary is comes through, and they don't forget people's names like I do constantly.
I
Um,
forget people's
well,
names.
yeah, I've talked about this. My technique has always been, I mean, because I started as a piano major, so I was a piano major, and then I wasn't until I was 20, or no, 19, that the drummer in the band that I was doing prog rock. Did you ever get into prog rock, or was
Now,
that some of your stuff
I
you
never
just threw
played in a
away?
band. I never played in a band.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I was in a band, prog rock. Figured all the music out. The drummer said,
Did you get a lot of girls from doing that?
"Oh yeah, tons."
See, I didn't get any of
No,
that.
I'm telling you, no,
Oh, no.
none.
Okay.
Not prog rock. If I had done, my first instinct was to be as close to the Beatles as possible, I might have gotten girls. But instead, I got really serious about sounding like Gentle Giant and Jethro Tull and Yes and King Crimson. And yeah, that the girls weren't showing up for that one.
Too bad.
But anyway, the drummer said, "Why don't you write music?" And it was when I was 19. I was a piano major at the conservatory, and I was like very serious about classical piano. And it just never occurred to me that I could write music. And so I went up the stairs. I started banging out something that I thought would be cool for the band I had. I had two guitar players and a bass player, and I played flute and keys, and the other guy could play clarinet and keys and bass. I mean, we had some multi-talented people, and so I could actually write for them. And I wrote this thing, and I brought it down, and they all liked it. I'm like, that's it. I like writing music, and I
Yeah.
just decided to switch. So I switched from piano major to comp major, and I had a lot to make up. I mean, I had no clue about lots of stuff. So
You started after learning about harmony and
yeah,
counterpoint and yeah, notation, all that.
counterpoint was actually a thrill. When I started taking counterpoint, I really, really enjoyed it. And I remember taking 16th century counterpoint and species counterpoint.
Oh, yeah.
And for some reason, I just really took to it. And I was able to write things that sounded 16th century legit because I sort of,
Did that help you with your Halo thing?
yeah, yeah, of
There you
course.
go. You never. So this is where the people who
Yeah,
don't want
this
to
is why our
study. This is
education's
where like
important.
you learn something. Like I studied 12 tone or I studied aleatoric music, and all of a sudden, hey, I can use it here. This would be really cool for this. You
Exactly.
connect things that you've learned or that you like in your life, and all of a sudden, that's how really creative stuff comes to us.
Yeah, I think if you if you use your education as some sort of set of rules that you go by rather than these are just cool connections to other styles and historical periods of music theory, like there is no one music theory. There's many different styles and periods, and you can learn why this chord progression means something over here, and then
Yeah,
this set of things means something different over here, and you can make, if you're creative, you can make the connections. And so what I
yeah,
was going to say is like what I enjoy doing is sort of improvising in the playground, like just have fun. Whenever I start, I don't want to think too hard about structuring something, but I improvise. I want to have fun, and then I'll capture a lot of what I've improvised, and then I'll sort of analyze it. I'll put you know, my educated hat on, and I analyze what I've done, throw away the stuff that's not interesting or doesn't do anything for
an
me, and
app,
then really figure out the cool stuff and then work with that.
like with
That's me.
Schoenberg. Schoenberg wrote a book, and the subtitle was an Apollonian analysis of a Dionysian. No, a Dionysian. No, an Apollonian analysis of a Dionysian epic.
Oh,
which meant an
there you go. The two, yeah.
intellectual of the heart, something heartfelt. So
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, good. Maybe I come by it on.
structural harmony is famous. I don't know how
Yes.
famous it is.
Well, we both went to USC, and the Schoenberg Center was right
That's
there.
right.
Arnold
So
Schoenberg was there.
structural harmony was your go-to reading material.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I was like, I sort of rebelled against any push towards serialism. Now, let's go back to USC.
Just an aside, structural
Yeah.
harmony is like about Beethoven. It's like if you
Yes.
actually look at it, there's almost no 12 tone in it. It's basically
Right.
like it's like traditional harmony and stuff.
It is, yeah. And, Schoenberg, of course, was absolutely brilliant when it came to classical and late romantic style writing. His early stuff was like super tonal.
Oh yeah,
And,
earlier.
and yeah, yeah.
But someone said about his music, it's better than it sounds.
Well, that's true. I don't think other than the fact that, like, now you picked up on this just not too long ago. You worked with Nikolai Strunsky, who's just a great guy.
Yeah.
And he had you come out and work with him on Metamorphosis,
Yeah.
which is
And we used
really cool score.
Sprechstimme,
which is also Schoenberg, right?
That was my idea. I said, this
Oh.
game is like based on this Kafka story, two Kafka stories actually. And that's,
really? Okay.
Yeah, it's the Tower and Metamorphosis, but mostly Metamorphosis, where you become an insect instantaneously. And I said that era, that's like the Expressionist era. What if we did something kind of an Expressionist score and he was not familiar with that, so I sent him some Expressionist stuff. And this is really cool. Especially the vocal style, which is sung and we found this amazing singer,
This
Polish, Joanna Freschel, and Nikolai found her. She was perfect.
Okay.
Totally made our music way better than it was.
Oh, I was wondering about that. Now, have you are you aware of this Expedition 33 Claire Obscure game? Have you heard about this game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, never
Should I
mind.
look it up? Is something I should listen to?
It's going to be Game of the Year.
Really?
I'll almost guarantee you. I have nobody who's a gamer who plays game who's in the industry has had anything negative to say about it. And I listened to the score. Yeah, it's called Claire Obscure, but Expedition 33. If you look up Expedition 33, you'll find it. And the score is very unique, super French.
What makes it French?
Well, everything is sung in French. They have some singing in it, and it's all in French. But it's a French development group. But the music itself just seems French to me. It's like it's sort of luscious but simple.
Debussy or
no, it's not impressionistic.
No, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I call it French. It's
like
sort of
Levine Rose kind of.
Yeah, maybe it's more in that zone. I haven't heard a lot of it, but
okay.
I'm very interested in finding out. Apparently, this guy who was found to do this, he plays guitar and he plays keys, and I just did some very beautiful sounding stuff. But I have a feeling the way the music is used in the game must be really effective because people are just talking a lot about the soundtrack.
Cool.
And sometimes there are some great soundtracks that just sit by themselves and they're great, but they don't work well in a game, so it doesn't work. So tell me a little bit about that, like, because you didn't come to games as a hardcore gamer. When you're asked to write music for games, how involved do you get with the game itself?
Well, I'm certainly not doing anything but music. They're not hiring me to become the audio director and, do the interactivity. I do none of that. I just come at it, instinctively, like John Williams says. I'll be happy to write on that perspective. And obviously, just like you would be inspired by a film or a television show or anything, they start presenting the material. Sometimes there's a script. Sometimes there's some early artwork. Sometimes they are into the game and they can send you some mock-ups, or someone plays the game and they can do a video capture and you try to understand and then you start experimenting with stuff. And obviously they may have some ideas, musical ideas. Generally in speaking in games, it's not like film so much where they have like a temp score.
Right.
Generally not. But sometimes they have. We've been listening to this music. Here's like here's a list of keys that we really like from all over the place. It could be a James Horner and John Williams and a Jerry Goldsmith and anything. And so here's stuff that we like, and that sometimes can inspire you or give me that's the direction. That can be a cool direction. And other times, it's just like we don't know what we want, and we want it, So and then you start, we can mock things up really well, and we can send them what about this, so that's how it works.
So with Bioshock, the first Bioshock, you ended up with, I believe it's all your stuff. It's like 2 hours of music. Am I right on that?
It's more like 70 minutes of music, 75 minutes of music. Yeah.
It's still a lot of music. And then how much of that was like, did they say we need another piece like this, or we need a 3 minute long piece it was like this other one you did, or like here is a cinematic you need to score? Like how did that break down?
Very few cinematics in that game. Just at the very end, there's some cinematics. There are some moments in the game that are, scripted events.
Scripted moments,
so
sure.
You score them as that. So like you're descending in a submarine, or they call it a bathysphere,
right?
And you see the city for the
but
first
the
time.
timing is
the
locked.
timing is locked, so you're sort of scoring that,
Yeah.
So that was easy to do because that's what I did. I scored the picture, and that always felt like. And they didn't want any combat music, but then after I finished, they brought me back to write combat music. They go, oh no, we actually do want combat music, so I did that. And
some of that combat music is like, it's some of the most atonal and cool,
super intense driving. Yes, it's
really cool.
Very, very intense. And it worked for that game. It really, because it's pretty, intense.
So we'll end on this, I think, because it's okay. Yeah, I've kept you long enough. But we're going to end on Cohen's masterpiece, which is the piano piece.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. It is. It's sort of, I would say Rachmaninoff-y, Scriabin-y. I don't know. Who was your inspiration for that?
Rachmaninoff, definitely.
Okay, all right.
Because so Emily said, okay, here, we need this music. There's a character named Cohen, Sander Cohen, and he is like one of the madmen. He's one of the most interesting characters in the game. Yeah. And so he's on this level where the entertainment took place, and so I was scoring that level, so entertainment, and he writes a piano piece, and he's like actually, having someone play it while he's screaming at him and unhappy with the performance. So I said, so you got to write that piano piece.
Okay.
So I go, okay, well, what would the Sander Cohen character write like? And I kind of thought of him as Rachmaninoff in the sense that Rachmaninoff was writing sort of late romantic music well into the 20th century, where everybody was like, where the leaders of that time were Stravinsky's and Bartoks and people like that. And he was writing this gorgeous, amazing music well into the 20th century. So I thought maybe he's that kind of a character. So he might be kind of in some ways conservative. This is what music should sound like, not this noisy trash like Stravinsky and Schoenberg. So that was my image, anyways. So I wrote this, and Emily loved it, and a quick story. So I knew this piano piece was going to be.
I was going to say, who played it?
I won't say because I don't want to embarrass him. But
Okay.
so I came to this. I needed a piano player, and he came in after we recorded the strings and everything. We were recording it at Capitol, actually,
Sure. Oh, wow.
and he came in, and but before, 2 weeks before, I said, dude, you need to look at this music because this is going to be like a little
This
bit
is
of a
it's kind of
challenge,
hard.
.
Yeah.
So I sent him the PDFs, and then like a few days beforehand, I called him and said, so can you? Because all the other music I knew he would have no trouble with. It was all very, very basic and cool, easy-ish to play. But I said, can you, is that okay? Oh, yeah, no problem. So we get to the session, and like it was the second hour, he did all this other stuff. He was going to do it, and we took a 10. And then I heard him kind of like practicing it out there. And I go, he never learned this.
You never.
He's struggling. We're screwed. He can't play it. And so, sure enough, he couldn't play it. So we recorded it in sections of like
Sure.
of like 5 bars or something. It was 6 bars. He would get he was very good. He's a very good pianist. He's still around.
Obviously, yeah.
But he could only get a few bars, and we had like and then we had to knit that together
Wow.
in Pro Tools afterwards.
Okay.
And then I told Emily, I go, I love the way this score turned out, and she was really over the moon over it. But I go,
Yeah.
I feel like Cohen's masterpiece. I should re-record this. I'll pay for it. She goes, no, it's perfect. It sounds perfect.
Interesting.
Because the guy who's playing it is not perfect. He's learning it, or he's, and actually the Sandra Cohen blows him and the piano up in the games. So I go, okay, I didn't know that. So all right, so she was happy with that, and it sounds pretty good. We made it work. Dan Blessinger, my engineer for many years,
Well,
just
definitely made it work. Yeah.
Made it work.
Because when you said how much you played the piano, I thought, well, maybe Gary played this piece.
No, it was too much work to learn. And
Yeah, yeah. I have a piece that I wrote, the piano piece, and people were like, "Well, when do you play it?" I'm like, "No, it's too hard. I'm not going to learn that piece. It was way too hard. I never played it." But I had a guy named Matthew Thompson is a game guy, expert music guy out of Michigan. Do you know? Have you heard of him? Anyway, he played it for me and made a recording. It's really good. So anyway, we will end at some point. We have to play. We'll play snippets of music that we talk about, and I don't know where we're inserting them, but we'll do that after we're done talking. So after we'll end with some of Cohen's masterpiece, because that's I just think it's such a unique thing. It's unique for the game industry. It's the fact that it you were thinking Rachmaninoff the whole time. There's a little Scriabin in there too for me.
I
for my
think
ears.
maybe.
Yeah.
I remember calling my.
But Rachmaninoff was the first because there's some of the just powerful chord stuff you're doing is Rachmaninoff.
When I finished writing that, I called my agent, who she passed away sadly.
Oh yeah, sure.
But,
What are you talking about?
Shotiana, and I said, I feel like a real composer today. Today, I feel like a real composer. I really wrote some real music today.
Real music for a video game.
I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, yeah, I mean, that really sort of rocketed you into the limelight.
That was a successful score.
And the rest is history. And the Bioshock Infinite had some amazing music in it too. So and I'm assuming Emily did some of the. Was it?
She was not involved in Infinite.
Oh no!
No,
really?
She went. She left.
Is there singing? There's some. I think they use songs again. Don't they use some songs in that one, or is it?
They did.
Okay.
But I had nothing to do with that. I can't. They used a Beach Boys song.
Yeah, that's right. That was a Beach Boys song.
With the Barbershop Quartet, which is so cool. It's a great idea. I wish I had it. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't arrange it either. I wrote the score. I did. Okay. I won a BAFTA for that score, so I'll take the kudos for that part.
Take it. Yeah. Wow. That's really.
I hope
cool.
they didn't give us the BAFTA because of that Barbershop Quartet.
They might have, and it's a Beach Boys song. You never know.
They didn't know. No, but that was that's a great game too. But she went on to Valve. She's I don't know if she's still at Valve. I've been in touch with her for a few years, but she went and spent many happy years at Valve.
Okay, cool. Well, I should find out what she's doing. There's so many other people. Like it's interesting. I still like to take credit for being the first official audio director in the video game business, because as you know, in the film business and TV business, there's no such thing as audio
No,
director.
no.
And because I came from film and TV, I'm like, there should be an audio director. So now that I'm in games, I'm going to create this position that I call audio director, and I have my own definition of
So
what it
you
is.
created the term audio director.
I am taking credit for that, and I'll fight anybody
That's
who wants to
very
fight me on this.
impressive. Then I'm going to take credit for the first orchestral score.
I think you should. I think 90, 92, 93, that's like nobody was doing live orchestra back then. So very, very cool. All right, Gary,
All right,
thank you so much. And let me know when I can come to LA and speak to your
Yeah.
class. That'll be fun.
Let me know when it would be potentially convenient, and we'll pick a Thursday, as you know, it's on Thursdays, and you'll be a wonderful guest. We'd love to.
All right,
have
that
you.
sounds great.
All right, man.
Thanks so much for
Yeah.
this. This was a lot of fun. It was great to talk about music with,
Yeah.
a fellow USC person and a fellow educated composer. I'm glad to find out how much instinctual stuff that you do and how much enjoyment you get.
It's all instinctual, but it's
Yeah.
instinctual. It's educated, just like
Yeah.
like the analogy of someone who is well, knows how to use the language, and so you kind of you speak it. Through your music, in a way, you're speaking, and you're not necessarily thinking what is the chord, what chords are. You're just experimenting with things, and
Yeah.
you're trying things, so.
Excellent. All right. Well, then that's it. We will
All right,
talk
man.
another time.
Good to
And
see you,
thanks so
Marty.
much for joining the
My
show.
pleasure.
See you later.
All right.
All right.
Bye, Marty.